Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Huawei as a company is a company that made great strides and great advancement not only within manufacturing of smartphones and smart technology, but they're the first company and the closest company to actually creating and actualizing the 5G technology that is needed in the world nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, right? I think first and foremost, before we enter this debate, needs to be a bit of clarification as to where exactly and how exactly do we view this debate. First and foremost, I think this debate needs to be viewed in the lens of South Korea and why it's particularly important for South Korea and the Korean government to still allow Huawei to conduct businesses and all these things within South Korea, right? This is probably due to multiple factors like technological development and economical development that is extremely important for South Korea, given the multiple incentives that South Korea has in talking about being one of the strongest powerhouse not only in smart technology, but also one of the strongest powerhouses within the Asian region and also the entire world, going against China and going against US, but still dealing with them at the same time, right? I have two argumentations in my speech. Number one, I'll tell you what should the Korean government do in order to benefit its country, why this then also trickles down to the people, what's extremely important for the Korean government at the end of the day. Number two, I'll tell you why the fear, later on I'll tell you why the fear of the US will not be a problem towards South Korea, and inevitably, there will still be good trade, still be good relations with South Korea at the end of the day. Yeah, sure.
So President Donald Trump has labeled everyone that works with Huawei as a traitor and undeserving of military support. Are you willing to risk the threat of a US military withdrawal?
In the worst case scenario, we're completely fine with that, right? We'll tell you why the other alternatives in society are in the world are still ones that can benefit and can help out South Korea at the end of the day. So first argumentation, why should the Korean government do to benefit its country and its people, right? I think first and foremost, we have to analyze what exactly is the nature of 5G, and why exactly is 5G and Huawei so important in the world that we live in now, right? I think because 5G and Huawei in itself are extremely unprecedented creations of technology, creations of Wi-Fi and internet that has caused and created great advancement within the world, right? 5G allows individuals to access more and better transportation technology, meaning that individuals are better able to create autonomous vehicles, they're able to have extremely fast Wi-Fi and fast connection to not only internet, but also the extreme vast technology, vast information on the World Wide Web, ladies and gentlemen, but also this extreme advancement within telecommunication in itself, right, ladies and gentlemen. It's extremely important for South Korea, given that they're one of the first countries, not only in Asia but within the entire world, to have Wi-Fi everywhere within the country, ladies and gentlemen, and to have Samsung as the greatest and largest manufacturer of smart technology, ladies and gentlemen, right? Meaning that the country becomes the moment that they allow for Huawei to continuously conduct business within their country, they're also able to become the pioneers of 5G that then later on they'll be able to dominate the industry, which is highly in the incentive of South Korea, right? But then secondly, we have to talk about what exactly are these incentives of South Korea, right? South Korea wants to be the pioneer, because South Korea wants to be the pioneer in that industry, and given the fact that they already hold Samsung, which is the biggest manufacturer of smartphones in the world, South Korea has an incentive to get be as economically powerful as other actors in the world like the US and China, right? Allowing Huawei to remain within South Korea in itself gives them the ability, because Huawei can then share and use technology and cooperate with the South Korean government in order not only to advance Samsung, its biggest company, but advance the multiple amount of areas and individuals who live within South Korea, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, they're also able to cooperate with the research and development and start to become those pioneers and advance a lot greater and a lot closer towards 5G technology, ladies and gentlemen. If you allow Huawei to stay, you have multiple benefits. R&D R&D in 5G. You have economic empowerment because everyone wants to trade and work with you the moment that you become pioneers of 5G, the moment you become closer towards creating 5G technology. You have to have more technological development. Also, thousands of jobs are created for your individuals on the ground, which ultimately creates and generates stronger and greater revenue for your country, ladies and gentlemen. Those are benefits that South Korea just cannot ignore and cannot get if they ignore Huawei in itself, if they ignore the advancement of 5G, ladies and gentlemen, right? Secondly, the second argumentation, why exactly then is it okay for for South Korea to not fear US, given that US has caused actively made sure that Huawei does not deal businesses within its country, right? I think first and foremost is to understand and acknowledge that US right now as an economic powerhouse is losing ground. They're losing strong economic allies like Mexico, like Canada, due to Trump wanting to impose high and strong tariffs on these particular countries, right? South Korea is seen as an extremely important ally of the US due to multiple factors, and these are particular reasons as to why the US would not want to withdraw from South Korea, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take one last one.
Maybe we will lose some revenue in the short term, but you cannot argue 5G is gone. 5G isn't mutually exclusive. There are two other telecommunication companies in South Korea that already have rolled out 5G.
Correct, but the problem is right now, it's a scale, right? Where you get even more benefit and more economic empowerment on the outside of the house, we think it's more likely, especially if you become the pioneers of 5G technology, right? So why is it extremely important that, and reasons why the US just will not cut off ties with South Korea? Number one, because South Korea has freaking Samsung, guys. I don't think the US wants to lose out on business and trade with Samsung, given that it's the biggest manufacturer of technologies in the world. Number two, the Korean industry is booming all around the world, ladies and gentlemen. Lisa, I love you. Thirdly, their strategic positioning within the area in of itself, ladies and gentlemen, towards Japan and other Asian countries and Asian regions, right, ladies and gentlemen. Number four, there's also an extremely long-standing relation with South Korea in of itself. Ever since, even before Trump, even before the Obama administration, I don't think there's any reason for them to want to cut ties in that particular manner then, ladies and gentlemen. Number five, the US just doesn't completely pull out of any deal or any alliance due to one particular reason. They don't cut off alliances with the EU, they don't cut off alliances with Asian regions and others when they have disputes in those particular areas, ladies and gentlemen. But number six, and lastly, I think even in the worst case scenario, if they do pull out, right, and they do pull out, we're completely fine with that because there are other multiple actors out there who are still able to benefit South Korea and help them out. For example, China, right, because they have more incentive to want to tap into that market and create jobs and create the income because China is a close proximity because there's more economic power and able to make sure that particular partnership occurs, right, ladies and gentlemen. All of these particular things and all of these particular reasons are why South Korea just does not have to have a fear of US, and US cannot control South Korea in this particular manner for all those particular reasons. I'm extremely proud to propose.
The Prime Minister, the leader of opposition, proceed with the debate.
Yeah.
The problem with the Prime Minister is that they assume that Huawei is simply relegated to the realm of it being another economical or business issue. The reality of the situation is that Huawei has become a political and international relation flashpoint for every nation involved in it. It is no longer about the development of 5G. It is about loyalty and allegiances to a United States and a president that demands loyalty. In this particular context, we think that pandering to your biggest military and trade partner is the most strategic decision South Korea can take. Here's the framing. We don't think the tech here is very important, but we're going to engage with the 5G development regardless. This debate is about politics and also like the decision we can take to take into account the political affiliations and whether jeopardizing US relations for a pivot to China is worthwhile. So what does the world of opposition look like? Firstly, we would follow suit to the alliance currently led by the United States. We would ban Huawei from our nation. This is what we would do to the current existing telco. We would remove all influence of Huawei from it. We would pay off their shareholders. We would remove all versions of technology that currently exists within the telco. At very best, we are fine with destroying the telco as well. We will replace it with one of our many other telecommunications that are available. That's the policy. So let me begin with a few questions of response to the speaker before me. So the first thing that they suggested was that we need Huawei for the development of 5G. So this entire argument is assumptuous of the fact that Huawei is not replaceable in this particular context. So I think the first thing I can say is that I think Huawei, like South Korea, can replace Huawei quite easily. Here's the reasons as to why. So the biggest telcos in South Korea are currently collaborating with AT&T and LG. Samsung and LG created the first two. These are the Korean companies that were created. The second thing is that seeing as we created the first two without any help from Huawei, I think there is quite reasonable space and capacity for us to build it on our own. But the second thing is like, the only reason why Huawei was invited in the third one was because we were trying to make a peaceful diplomatic gesture towards China during the Inter-Korean Summit to make sure that they are not as aggressive as possible. Like, this is the reason as to why we can trade it off. However, I'm willing to take a comparative. Maybe the development of 5G is slower in our world. But here is the cost that it comes with in the side of government. You retain the tech companies that are Western. Because if you notice on the Prime Minister's speech, they're going to share information between Huawei and the South Korean companies. It's so bad, guys. Huawei literally steals IP from Apple and Samsung. These are literally the biggest corporations within the West. These are literally the things that your allies care about the most. So maybe you gain Huawei, but you lose out on Apple, you lose out on AT&T, all the American allies that make your telco industry the most effective in the nation. So I agree, maybe it's slower, but it doesn't come at the cost of losing out on what's most important. The next thing that they suggested was that we need Huawei for the economical benefit. So the reality is that Huawei is currently being crippled left, right, and center, right? They are not trading anywhere. Like the only country I've heard of is like Malaysia. Apparently, Malaysia is not very important anyway. The reality of the situation is that the Huawei is likely not to be as investing as possible because they have to protect the losses that they are currently sustaining from the United States. Like the US could cripple them overnight if they had to. That's why they cannot invest in South Korea as much. The comparative now is prioritizing the United States. So while it's true the US may not be in a better economic position than they were previously, in a direct war of attrition against China, they're quite likely to win. Like here's the facts. Like America exports about $2.2 billion worth of goods to China. They can literally cut off those exports if they wanted to. The reality is that China is losing the trade war and they cannot win because of the sheer size of the American economy. With this particular context in mind, it's quite likely that the US is going to win, so you should stick on the side of individuals who are more than likely to win. So here's my argumentation. I'm going to explain why this is bad for South Korea. The first thing that I have to say is I think the threat currently is quite credible coming from Huawei. Here are some reasons why. Number one, the most random of countries, like Australia, has decided to ban them for the reason being privacy and security. These guys have not many other alternatives. These are all countries that want 5G but don't have the access to the technology to build it. I think what this suggests that if they are willing to forego 5G for a national security interest, the threat is quite imminent and the threat is quite credible. So here's the next thing. What exactly is Korea's interest? Yeah, they want to have economical development, but the most important thing in this situation is a military benefit and interest, which is dealing with North Korea, which is an existential threat. So what is the way in which South Korea currently handles the threat from North Korea? It's very reliant on mutual surveillance and military information gathering between their Western allies and also their allies within the sea. So the problem now is that a lot of them have concerns over the information sharing. So a lot of them worry that the info they share between governments are being spied upon by China. The problem also is that a lot of South Korean, like I've repeated on 3 times, like a lot of the problem with South Korea right now is a lot of the governmental communication happens through 5G as well. The likelihood is that a lot of your allies, in most importantly the United States, is likely to feel that the information they share with you is likely to be compromised or sent. I'll take you at 550. It's likely to be compromised or going to lead to China. This leads to a couple of things. Number one, you have less information to deal with the North Korean threat. The second alternative is also this. You have to pivot towards China. Here are reasons why China is a horrible actor for them to prioritize. Number one, they're just closer to North Korea. They're pouring millions and millions and millions of yuan towards China, towards North Korea to actively build them up or actively use them as a buffer zone. The reality is that they're quite likely to prioritize North Korea over you, especially given how geographical proximate North Korea is to China. They're literally on the border. You're much further away. In terms of determining who is more important, North Korea will always now. Before I move to the business, yes.
Yeah, so the United States has an interest to monitor North Korea as well as maintain a military presence in Asia as well. Why would they immediately pull out just because of the telecommunications?
Because their military secrets are potentially being leaked to China, their biggest adversary. That's a horrible existential threat to the United States. My second argument is going to be about business. So if you notice, a lot of the United States at the moment is unhinged. So Trump is irrational and is an individual that surrounded himself by yes men. So that means the decisions they make with foreign policy and business is no longer rational. It's no longer based on the Obama people. I'm pretty sure they're all fired at this point, right? So the question now is, what happens to the businesses? Historically, the United States has made up for all of the business transactions within South Korea. They are the ones that invested the most dollars post the Civil War. The problem now is a lot of these companies will likely pull back from South Korea because they cannot risk sanction by the Department of Justice. They cannot lose access to the biggest economy in the world. So the question now is, who is likely to replace them? We think that the replacement are likely to be chaebols. These are large family-oriented linked businesses that are currently linked with multiple corruption scandals within South Korea. The reason as to why they are unfavorable is because they're highly unregulated and they're unaccountable. Because they're so seated within the state, the ability for the South Korean government to control the decisions they make, whether they are beneficial or negative for the government, is severely limited. They need to deal with that comparative. We can control Western companies. We can't control the chaebols. We can lose Huawei. We can't lose the United States. That's the comparative. That's why not.
Yeah.
And the opposition, but you have to keep on this way.
Here.
Well, you might try to innovate the 5G technology with AT&T on whatever American companies that you want. You cannot get the first movers advantage that South Korea currently has with the 5G network that they currently have. That means the ability to be able to have first movers advantage means the ability to be the first country in the world to innovate things like autonomous vehicle, to innovate things autonomous vehicles that are far more advanced, to build the ability to advance technology to an unprecedented era. We think that's a far more preferable world, and a world whereby South Korea can make far more profit that will make up for any loss that they will make with the United States. So let's firstly deal with a few concerns that side opposition has. The first concern that they have is that US will retaliate significantly and pull out military, stop being trade partners, etc. The first thing is why exactly this is unlikely. The first is that US will always have an incentive to maintain good relationships with South Korea for several reasons. A, that South Korea is as much as valuable to America as America is to Korea. It's a mutually beneficial relationship whereby America benefits of Samsung, Hyundai, etc. These are things that America would also lose out. And given the fact that characterization that we told you, that America is currently at a crucial position whereby it's losing all of its trading partners because of the trade war with China, but as well as Trump threatening to put on tariffs onto Canada as well as Mexico. This means that US is also at a fragile position whereby they are unwilling to take up risks to hurt themselves. But secondly, America has never retaliated so significantly with just one position, right? There were multitudes of events whereby the EU criticized and took a stance against US, but they still maintain their relationships as trading partners as well as political allies. But it's also like I don't know, Malaysia as well, but also Asian countries that have continuously spoke up against the United States, but still maintain this relationship. I'm unsure why this one policy that South Korea would take would suddenly create massive harm to one where you pull out military support from South Korea. But the third thing that we would say in terms of military is that United States would always have an incentive to maintain their military bases within South Korea for several reasons. A, they want to maintain American hegemony within Asia because and South Korea is one of its main allies Korea is still a threat. So we don't think this one policy will suddenly is a game changer for South America to a point where they pull out military bases. This is completely unrealistic. But the second question I'll answer is why exactly America would always have an incentive to maintain close ties with Korea. The first is in terms of economic, right? The ability to access the 5G technology from Korea. So the only reason why US banned Huawei in the first place was because it's feared that China was using Huawei's technology to spy on them, right? But what would happen under our world is that Korea would have access to this technology and be able to develop its own technology or be able to develop its own 5G network that ultimately other countries can use by mimicking the technology that they have from Huawei. What this means is that without a doubt, they are able to create unprecedented innovation that US will ultimately have access to. So companies like AT&T as well as Apple can also benefit off those innovations if South Korea have access to those innovations. So we think America will still have an incentive to maintain close economic trade partners with South Korea before that. Sure.
So you are correct in pointing out that the US historically has not severed ties because of their good relation. Those historical incidents did not involve military secrets being stolen or technology being stolen as well. This is a new threat. How does that weigh to this?
So this problem about like people Huawei spying, etc. is the first thing is that South Korea can clearly make compromises in terms of like not using the 5G network in military purposes, but still using those innovations within the technology. Because right now in status quo, the current companies that are using are telco companies for consumers on the ground, not military bases. I'm unsure why the military bases would still want to use 5G if they are so afraid of stealing military secrets. I'm unsure why we can do that. But the second thing is that why exactly we should pivot to China in terms of economically as well as military. The first is that China is one of the growing economic powers within the world, right? So sure, maybe China is currently at a fragile place because of the trade war, but the thing that is undeniable is still the fact that China is more proximate to South Korea than it is to America. So that means products will be cheaper, goods and services will be cheaper because of the proximity that they have. But secondly, we will say, while US has its tech giants, China also has its tech giants as well, like Tencent and Alibaba, etc. Those tech giants can have partnerships with South Korea as well. We think it's symmetrical at that point. But the last absurd idea that they have is that, China will prioritize North Korea over South Korea. This is just an absurd idea because number one, South Korea is far more profitable than North Korea, right? North Koreans don't even have roads. We don't think it's likely for China to prioritize economically South Korea over a country that is less economically advanced because South Korea has also quite good at, I think, economically sound countries will of course choose South Korea over China. But the last thing is that we'll take the trade-off. Even if it comes at the expense of United States retaliation, why is it far more preferable? Three reasons. The first is the technological advancement and innovation, and the money and profit you make off of this will make up for any loss that you make with burning the economic ties with North America. Because while America is profit, the innovation will make up for it. But secondly, while you lose telco companies in America, you gain telco companies in China as well, like Tencent as well. But the last thing we'll say is that the last thing we'll say is that even in the worst case scenario, whereby we have to pull out America will have to pull out military, there are other alternatives for military. I'm sure China who want to help out and pull in your military bases. We're very proud to propose.
Yes.
I thank the CPM that
There are two questions I'll answer in this debate. The first, how does this affect 5G technology development, which I don't think should be a priority in this debate. So I'll tell you first why we win it. Secondly, why it's not as important as like the risk of losing ties with the US. The second question I'll answer is who is likely to react more aggressively to being punished or to being hurt. Because both sides to some degree have to concede they will anger US and China. Why is it better to anger China as opposed to the US? But the first question with regards to 5G technology development, the first thing is literally their case is built on a factual error. There are still 2 telecommunication companies in South Korea that have already adopted 5G and have already rolled it out. So don't let them get away with this whole first mover advantage, all that nonsense. You know, South Korea is literally the only country that currently has already rolled out 5G with government-linked companies. So 5G doesn't disappear in the world. Or you need to debate in the context that currently exists. Secondly, so considering this is true, even if Huawei pulls out, maybe the development of 5G technology will be slower, but there's still first movers advantage. All the benefits that they wanted to talk about will still happen. But let me bite the bullet. Let us imagine that the world we live in is not the world that we live in. Even if 5G telecommunication companies in South Korea don't have 5G, which they do, I'm just even because I'm a very nice guy. I think US is still more beneficial because one, the US has an incentive to help you if you ban Huawei because they need to make an example of you to show how well they will treat loyal partners. Trump has shown trends of doing this in the past, of rewarding Australia, of having more trade with them because they banned Huawei as well. The point I'm trying to make is because Trump is so concerned about loyalty, he will need to prove to other allies that countries who are loyal get a lot of benefit. As a result, he has an incentive to ensure that South Korea benefits a lot after this. The second thing is, I think they missed the nuance from Navin's speech. During the Asian financial crisis, where South Korea was really suffering, the US donated more than 200 billion to South Korea, and as a result, planted a lot of roots in South Korea that China doesn't currently have. Why is this nuance so important? The point in which US stopped funding these companies, the point in which even if some of these companies pull out, all the harms Navin talked to you about chaebols, family-oriented, unregulated companies having larger monopolies, dominating and so on, happen a lot worse in their world, where they hike up prices, where they have low quality of goods, etc., etc. And the reason why this harm doesn't apply to China is because, yes, China is a growing economy, but they don't have the same amount of roots that US currently has in South Korea, and as a result, the harm of US pulling out is far greater than the harm of China, who is not there yet, possibly pulling out possible investment. The last thing I'll say is I think you lose a lot of US technology. And so the reason why this is so harmful is because I think they wanted to paint this world where Huawei was the only technology we needed, or the phone companies are the only technology we needed. This is not true. US technology also comprises things like US literally funding more than half of the agricultural sector in South Korea, where there is so much production technology that is specific from them. Manufacturing industries are literally based on US manufacturing goods. That means the comparative in the world cannot be Huawei versus AT&T. It must be Huawei versus that direct recognition that your manufacturing sector, your agricultural sectors are all more likely to be affected in your world. Have a seat. So the point I'm trying to make is the money we lose in the phone industry, assuming 5G isn't real in South Korea currently, is far less than the money we lose from US being antagonistic in all these other industries, imposing tariffs in all these other industries. No thank you, have a seat. The conclusion is we need the US more, even if we don't have first movers advantage, which we still will have, the US threatening to pull out is far worse. So the second question I'll answer, who is likely to react more aggressively to being screwed over? Because if you notice, they were really defensive, right? In Prime Minister, they gave you 4 or 5 reasons why the US won't react aggressively. So here's a couple of things I'll say. The first reason they gave to prove that the US won't be aggressive is because they don't want to lose Samsung. So the first thing is, they can hurt you in so many other ways. You don't have to just cut ties with Samsung, and there's so many other Korean companies that you are also dependent on. Like I said, agricultural exports, small SMEs, so on, so forth. The second thing, have a seat, is they claim that US and South Korea have long-standing relationships. They won't pull out of deals. They haven't shown a trend of pulling out of deals, and so on and so forth. The thing Navin already told you is that the trend analysis that Trump has been showing is so different. One, he literally basically forced Australia to ban Huawei. He's so impulsive and irrational. He literally literally pulled out of the Paris climate deal, even though he got so much backlash from it. All I'm trying to prove through this is that Trump is an irrational, nationalistic man that only cares about catering to his nationalistic Republican base. Even if he loses net support, he is nationalist and only cares about doing things out of impulse and supporting his nationalist base. He's so likely to pull out in your work. So at the very least, even if we don't completely cut ties with South Korea, I think Trump and the US has a very large incentive to reduce the amount of trade they have gradually, to impose some version of tariffs, etc., etc. But before I answer your PY, the last and most important thing they didn't understand. So they claim that the reason they won't pull out is because the military presence in North Korea is very important. In South Korea and North Korea is very important. But if you say the military is so important to US, they are not going to risk losing military secrets to South Korea, right? Because the problem there with Huawei is the lack of privacy. Then they wanted to create a new mechanism in deputy to say that they won't have it in the military. But it's so hard. Number one, it's super hard to regulate to say that you're not going to use Huawei's network at all when individuals in the military are communicating. But secondly, there are other problems that Huawei uses stolen IP. So meaning that the US uses technology that they don't want and is stolen from the US. As a result, they have a military and principal problem with it. But before that, I accept your POI because I already okay, thanks, Machan. So the conclusion to this is that even if you don't believe everything we have said before this, considering you agree that Trump cares a lot about his military secret, number one, he's not going to take the risk because it's so hard to regulate network, right? Because you don't know literally each private, each lieutenant, and what phone they're using. It's so hard to regulate. But the second thing, they just have a book here that you can watch somehow you respond to it, but I don't think you can. The second thing I'll say is that the second problem they have is that Huawei uses stolen IP. What this is to say is that there's an accusation that Huawei stole IP from Apple, which is an American company, so on and so forth. So US literally backing Huawei or not being tough on Huawei literally means they're complicit in an American company failing. And I already told you Trump is so nationalistic, he's unlikely to do this. But the last thing, will Chinese companies suffer? Pull out? No, I think they'll stay. Why? Because Xi Jinping cares more about the economy and as a result won't pull out. He showed trends of wanting to expand, wanting to pull out. His supporter base is based upon how good he is at managing the economy. Trump's supporter base is based on how nationalistic he is. What this is to say is that Xi Jinping has every incentive not to pull out or not to be too harsh on South Korea, but Trump has every incentive to be as harsh as humanly possible on South Korea because a long-standing ally like Mexico, like Canada, and he's threatening to pull out on NAFTA, by the way, to make an example out of them because this is what happens when you're not loyal to the empire of Donald Trump. Thank you very much. Concrete jungle, Thank you. I'm looking at my watch. Tasha, are you fasting?
Yeah.
Buka is in like 7 minutes, so
Okay,
you
that's
want to
my
wait?
speech.
So-
They say that we're taking Donald Trump's words too seriously. Even if he says something, doesn't mean that it will happen. An example that they give us was the wall. So maybe the wall is just one example, but you still have to compare with all the other things that Trump said and the things that he did. So for example, when he reduced his trip to Mexico and Canada, which changed his closest allies. Also, the second thing is that Trump is very sneaky. So even if you have to say that he has to go through the Senate, he can always be sneaky in his pursuit. So a good example is when Trump actually managed to fire a missile against ISIS in Syria without even going through the Senate in the first place. Like Trump has just so much power in order, number one, to just justify himself through Twitter or through his ways of making people believe in him. But also number two, because of his position, it's so easy for him to get away with certain things. And we don't think that it's true that Trump is easily held accountable. But before that, let's look at this 5G idea before I move on to my issue. Because they're trying to suggest that 5G is good. So we don't question that, and we think that 5G is definitely a good thing. But number one, it's not mutually exclusive because there are already the countries that made it in the first place. But also, if you read the Infoslide, they say that Huawei is 1/3 of the thing, which means that they have another 2 telcos that can also produce 5G. But also number two, like this argument cannot exist in a vacuum. You have to compare the benefits of 5G with the expense of losing all these other things. Trading with America, or like them having losing some Western technology. And the reason why it's very likely is because America will opt out if they think that a lot of their information will go to other countries because they really care about their information being private. But another thing is because Huawei. So even if you get Huawei under your side, you are still unsure of the sustainability of Huawei because a lot of countries now also choose to ban Huawei. You don't know what's the future of Huawei. How good can Huawei be in the future? Who can buy Huawei? So we think because of this unsustainability of Huawei is also not good that you choose to invest in that in comparison to the US that is more sustainable. But the third thing is also about this idea of threat. Because like US really cares about their defense. So if they think that their defense is being threatened, they'll also pull out from you, which means that your existence of 5G is not good if you lose all of these other different things. But I'll move on to you later as to why US is a better option for you to retain in comparison to China. But even so, why would China still have some incentive to stay, but US doesn't in the world of government? So number one, they say that they give us a lot of reasons why US will not want to lose allies because South Korea is so important. But it is also the reason why Trump wants to show how nationalist he is and to what length is he willing to be in order for him to reach his objective. So like things like he's willing to trade this off because he can say we can still do all this without you because he has a strong narrative trying to prove to people that we can still exist even without our strongest allies. Trying to show that Trump prioritizes rhetoric or nationalism and they're not really the consequences economically or even backlash from people. A good example is that Trump withdraw from the Iran nuclear even when this means that Iran is more likely to withdraw from the deal that limits Iran's ability to produce nuclear weapons. Trump knows that a lot of people would have backlash, but he doesn't care. He wants to prove to people that I can do whatever I want. It shows that Trump, the strongest narrative, is more important than any other thing that Trump actually has. So this shows that even if it comes with the cost of losing South Korea as a trade partner, Trump's main interest is always seem to be like the strong man, and he wouldn't do so. We don't understand why that is the less of an incentive in comparison to North Korea because he still has a lot of other alternatives, right? But let's look at the second thing. So about this idea of military. So we told you that military is also the main reason why we need America in the country, and also the main reason why America is more likely to withdraw. Will America leave? They say no. America cares about their hegemony. So number one, America don't want to be a hegemony anymore. They want to make America great again. We can see that the trends that are happening in the They pull back from Afghanistan, from a lot of countries from the Middle East, and even in the process of withdrawing from Syria. There's already trends that show that America don't really care anymore about being a hegemony. They just want to be nationalistic. Also number two, the reason they are also very likely to pull out is because America cares most about their information than being disseminated. Because number one, the one thing that America cares about most is the military power. Because there are older groups that both Democrat and Republican hinge their vote on is based on people who think that their military power is important. And number two, America has been pride on them not fearing them using their military power the whole time. We think that the reason why they're going to opt out is because they think that they have no longer control. So even if the government wants to say we are a good military, we can control this information, it's not the matter of whether or not you can control. It's the matter of whether or not it's what US perception on you. So if US thinks that there is some chance of your information, that information being disclosed, then that's already a good sign for US to step out from that. But if they withdraw, why is it a bad thing? That we think it is important for you, we need the US more, because the reason why we are safer from North Korea is because US is in our bases. In our base is because US trains some South Korean soldiers. Losing US base in South Korea means three things. Number one, you lose a lot of people who used to be there to protect your country. Also, number two, it creates a great vacuum. So you need to find more people who can replace the US soldiers that used to be there. Also, number three, you are also more open to threats because you seem weaker to other countries, including North Korea, and you don't think that's a good thing. But next, on this idea of China and why China is not a worthy country for you to keep. Before that, sure.
So even if Trump does pull out from South Korea and you acknowledge that there is some common benefit with the trade relations, why can't someone who comes in after Trump reverse his decision after taking into account the beneficial?
So I think it's very, number one, we can never know what will happen. We can never know if there is a country that's going to help. And if the country will be as good as US, and also US is always a better option in comparison to the other countries even unsure of. You can't even name us a country that will probably go into and fill in this vacuum. How will you be so sure that it can actually be beneficial? Okay, let's look at China. The first thing that they say that is that China wants to be tech giants. That is the exact reason why China wants to simply pull out of the South Korea, even though South Korea do not have Huawei, because China still cares about them exerting control as much in order for them to be tech giants. And Hans already told you what China cares most is on the economy and the money. So even if South Korea say no to Huawei, China will still invest in all these other things because they still care about South Korea as one of their market. In comparison, US only cares about nationalism. So once you betray them, you are no longer the loyal ally. US have no more reasons to go with you. We're trying to say that even though in our world, you might antagonize China, but China won't take as much measures as the US because they still care about you. Because you're still a market that they can tap into. But the next thing that they say, and it's actually quite funny because they say that, we need China because China is more proximate to us, so things are cheaper now. So number one, the comparative is that US possibly imposing high tariffs on you. But even if US don't go out under your world, they'll still impose very high tariffs because they have to punish South Korea in some way, which means that it's very difficult for South Korea to survive. But also number two, we think the US is very reckless in the decision that they make. So they used even though Mexico and Canada used to be very close allies, they no longer care. Also number three, even if they're most proximate to you, we think it is less of an importance in the debate because what the debate is about is about politics and under which one can get better allies and for you to become a better country in general. Losing US is not an option because China, you cannot be sure of how long China will be on your side, how much China is going to give to you. At least US, you know that they're loyal to you as long as you are also being loyal to them.
Here.
And then the opposition group speak out. The opposition.
Yeah.
It is not enough for the side of government to provide incentives to stay without responding to the major nuances coming from the opposition. Yes, South Korea may be valuable to the United States, but is it valuable enough to interact with a nation that is potentially becoming friendly with an adversarial nation that is China? That was the nuance and the comparative missed by the side of government. So here's the issue in this debate. It's just simply about where South Korea is better. There are two aspects of it. The first was on US relations. The next was about business ties in terms of developing 5G. So the first thing that they suggested was that there were a lot of incentives to staying within South Korea because they want to retain hegemony within Asia. If you analyze critically the deputy leader of opposition speech, you will realize quite quickly that Trump no longer cares and the United States no longer has a policy of wanting to retain a hegemony to begin with. In fact, on a trend, they have been scaling back and pulling back in almost all instances on the international major political scene. I think what this suggested, as proven by the deputy leader of the opposition, is that you're heading on a very critical and nuanced thin balance between losing their support and gaining it. So the next question, why are they likely to lose support? They have a lot of incentives, yes, but South Korea is not as valuable to the United States as what they will lose. Here's what they're potentially going to lose. For Huawei, they are pretty much accused of intellectual property theft and spying. So for South Korea to work with them, it just means the potential transfer of stolen intellectual property from the United States, from all its European allies, and actively being okay with it. The United States, as irrational as they are, they must respond with regards to their other allies and also the companies that exist within that. That's why it's likely for America to impose tariffs and sanctions on South Korea if they don't pull up militarily first. This is highly damaging because if you listen to the Gulf Whip, you will realize that, oh, South Korea is really export heavy, etc. If that is true, they're just that much more vulnerable to the impediment and undirected tariffs coming from the United States. The second thing that I talked about, I think I don't know why this became an issue, was about military secrets. So the 5G network, it's difficult to regulate, right? And the second thing is that it's not about whether it's actually happening, but it's a perception of if it will happen. Let's go back to the leader of the opposition speech. We suggested that because the technology is so new and there's so very minimal ways to control the dissemination of information, there is a perception that there is a risk and a threat to spying occurring. Whether it happens, I don't know. I'm not in South Korean intelligence, but I think reasonably the United States can guess that it potentially happens. So with regards to this, why are they then likely to be irrational? Because the United States glorifies the military and everything military related is impediment to them. So it's not about whether it will happen, it's about whether the United States is willing to take the risk of this information leaking to begin with. Across all three speakers of the opposition, the trend is clear. They will not risk the military because it is that much valuable to them. So on the first issue of this debate, I think it's quite clear that the opposition has won. The next one is about business. So their main contention was that 5G will become better. So I think at no point did they provide why the 5G networks within South Korea cannot develop on their own. If you notice, I gave you a rather clear comparative, which is this. Yes, maybe our development of 5G may be slower with the loss of Huawei, but this is the cost it comes at. In a world where you're very reliant on Western companies in your agricultural sector, your export sector, these are the biggest Western companies controlling and contributing to this excess. In a world where these Western companies feel like they have to pull out by virtue of being punished by the Department of Justice or being punished by the Trump administration, they are likely to pull out of South Korea. This just means, yes, you may have better relations or better control of 5G, but 5G means nothing. Your agricultural sector is failing, your exports are failing, you're being tariffed left, right, and center. This is a pure evaluation of attrition. The other side is more likely to enhance or interrogate or encourage America to be antagonistic, and we don't think South Korea can afford that. For that reason, opposition wins.
Yeah.
Is it yours?
Oh, sorry, Vanessa.
I don't know if it's
Go for it. Yeah, sorry. You should have given you water.
all right. Cover back.
If you look through your notes, all of the arguments that came from side opposition is hinged upon one thing, that US will be irrational to a point where they will pull out everything out of South Korea to teach them a lesson. If we can tell you why exactly we've proven to you how exactly this is unrealistic characterization of the United States, all of the arguments will fall and will ultimately fail. Because what we tell you is two things. One, that their house is speculative at best. We don't know whether or not it will happen. But second, even if it were true that it will happen, it's so disproportionate to a point where we're unsure whether or not America will react, to a point where they pull out all of their agricultural sector, all of their technological sector, all their military power from South Korea, even disregarding all of their other interests, political interests, economic interests within South Korea. I'm unsure why they would do this. So 3 questions I'll answer. The first is US likely going to retaliate so extremely. Second, why a pivot to China is far more preferable. And lastly, even if their harms were true, why is it that South Korea would be able to bear the brunt of US retaliation? So the first question is that we gave you 3 reasons. They gave you 3 reasons why it's true that United States will retaliate. 2 things. Number 1, Donald Trump. Number 2, they're scared of military secrets in South Korea being exposed. How do we respond to this? The first is in regards to Donald Trump. We told you that you shouldn't take him for his word. Because Moai told you there are other checkers and balances for Donald Trump. But secondly, we told you that in a few months he probably leave. That means it raises more speculation on whether or not this would happen or not. But the second thing that they told you is in terms of military. They spend a large amount of time in this, right? But this is such a mechanistic problem because even in status quo, the military already has its own network that the military runs on its own that does not use the network. And then there's this argument about perception, right? That only clear and was only clear in Taxia's speech. It's unfair for you to credit that argument when it was only materialized in Taxia's speech as well as reply. But secondly, what were the reasons that we told you, right? Three things. The first is that US has strong agreement, like the Chorus agreement with South Korea. South Korea is already economically valuable to America as it is to South Korea. But the third thing, the United States has an incentive to maintain militarily in the South Korea because North Korea still poses a threat and they still want to maintain some hegemony within Asia. They still are interests that United States will still acknowledge within making their decision, right? But the second question is why the pivot to China is far more preferable. We told you is a growing economic power, and that US is currently at a crucial point in time. They themselves acknowledge that they already lose Mexico and Canada as trading partners. That means it's less likely for America to pull out of South Korea, acknowledging that they're already losing Mexico as well as Canada. We think that raises more question on whether or not US would retaliate so extremely. But the second thing is that I think China would want to make a profit off the 5G, right? Therefore, they're more likely to maintain good relationship and also it's proximate. But the last thing is the most important thing. Because we acknowledge that even if the house were true, why is it that Korea will still be able to survive? Because the technological advancement that South Korea has from 5G, okay, maybe it's one of the telcos, but other two telcos will make up for all of the loss that they would have with all of the American companies like Apple, AT&T, etc. We think that billions of dollars of revenue will still make up for that loss. But secondly, if you lose out for telco from America, you will have telcos from China. We think that's still something that will make up for the loss of companies, and we think that still can. That means South Korea can still bear the brunt of our worst case scenario on the outside of the house. That's why our government takes it.
Thank you.
You going to get
Like 2 years ago.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you.
that's it.
Do you all want us to close the live stream?
Can I just stop?
How does that?
Pause,
Wait.